to another session of Bhagavatam Bites. And I would like to offer my deep apologies for the fact that we missed two last week. Yeah, it's just very busy. His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj was in town, and lots of things were going on, and somehow we just couldn't manage to get ourselves together to even do a short reading. So our apologies, and we hope you missed us. But you know, we're starting a new season now, so here we are.
Alright, it's Canto 4, Chapter 26, Text 9.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
When King... Alright, what text is this? 9. When King Paranjan was hunting in this way, many animals within the forest lost their lives with great pain, being pierced by the sharp arrowheads. Upon seeing these devastating, ghastly activities performed by the king, all the people who were merciful by nature became very unhappy. Such merciful persons do not tolerate seeing all this killing. Purport. When demoniac persons engage in animal killing, the demigods or devotees of the Lord are very much afflicted by this killing. Demoniac civilizations in this modern age maintain various types of slaughterhouses all over the world. Rascal swamis and yogis encourage foolish persons to go on eating flesh and killing animals, and at the same time continue their so-called meditation and mystical practices. All these affairs are ghastly, and a compassionate person, namely a devotee of the Lord, becomes very unhappy to see such a sight. The hunting process is also carried on in a different way, as we have already explained. Hunting women, drinking different types of liquor, becoming intoxicated, killing animals, and enjoying sex all serve as the basis of modern civilization. Vaishnavas are unhappy to see such a situation in the world, and therefore they are very busy spreading this Krishna consciousness movement. I think that's quite an appropriate point to end on this paragraph, considering today's Monday. Yesterday, actually it was Saturday, it was the 60th. Well, it depends what calendar you're looking at, the Saturday or Sunday. The weekend was the 60th anniversary of Prabhupada coming to the West, and then a big festival in Boston, maybe in other temples as well. So yeah, I think that's interesting to end on that line. Vaishnavas are unhappy to see such a situation in the world, and therefore they are very busy spreading this Krishna consciousness movement, because that's definitely what Prabhupada did, and you don't see any evidence of him just, oh, well, I got my first 5 temples, I got 5 temples, or I got a nice one in LA, or I got this or that, and then just resting, as it were. He kept moving, and he didn't just physically keep moving, even when he was stationary, because he was based at a temple, maybe for a month at the most at a time, whatever. Within his day he was busy, and his nights were busy as well, translating what we're reading now. So he was definitely very busy trying to spread this Krishna consciousness movement, because he was very unhappy to see the suffering, not just with the non-devotees, as we say, but with devotees as well.
Yeah, I mean, there weren't many devotees around then.
Okay, but what about the ones that were there?
Yeah, you're correct.
Okay.
All right, next paragraph. The devotees are pained to see the hunting and killing of animals in the forest. The wholesale slaughter of animals in the slaughterhouses and the exploitation of young girls in brothels that function under different names as clubs and societies. Being very much compassionate upon the killing of animals and sacrifice, the great sage Narada began his instructions to King Prachini Barhishat. In these instructions, Narada Muni explained that devotees like him are very much afflicted by all the killing that goes on in human society. Not only are saintly persons afflicted by this killing, but even God himself is afflicted and therefore comes down in the incarnation of Lord Buddha. Jayadev Goswami therefore sings Sadaya Hridaya Darshita Pashogatam, simply to stop the killing of animals. Lord Buddha compassionately appeared. Some rascals put forward the theory that an animal has no soul, or is something like dead stone. In this way they rationalize that there is no sin in animal killing. Actually, animals are not dead stone, but the killers of animals are stone-hearted. Consequently, no reason or philosophy appeals to them. They continue keeping slaughterhouses and killing animals in the forest. The conclusion is that one who does not care for the instructions of saintly persons like Narada and his disciplic succession surely falls into the category of nasta pragya and thus goes to hell. Interesting. So, a couple of things stand out. One, that the animal has no soul. Yeah, ironically, I remember once being completely stunned when my own mother, who I considered a very compassionate person, although in many ways she was involved in animal killing, but and we were talking once, and I said about the soul of an animal, and she said, no, animals don't have souls. And I thought, wow, that's so ignorant. And I remember saying, but Mom, if you look into the eyes of an animal, you can see there's life there, and if life is there, then... And she was like, no, animals don't have a soul. And I realized at that point that truth had to exist in situ so that she could continue basically eating meat and doing what she was doing, because otherwise she was a very compassionate person. So it was like, okay, because I could sense that it was getting tense, and it probably was going to be one of those awkward kind of conversations. So I just said, okay. But yeah, the point is that people do actually believe that, which is like phenomenally hard to believe that people believe that. Then the other point that's kind of made here is that, yeah, people aren't able to hear from saintly persons, and therefore they go to hell. Nasta pragya is what Srila Prabhupada says here in the purport. So if we can't hear, then it makes it difficult for us to grow, and it's very, very hard to hear for each and every one of us. If someone says something to us to correct us in any way, shape, or form, the false ego just immediately flares up and deflects, thinking that I'm perfect, or how could you judge me, or how could you do this? It's like, it's a recipe for a lack of growth. And as I say, pride comes before a fall, which means that if someone's saying, hey, watch out, you're about to fall off the side of a cliff, and you're like, what do you know? How dare you judge me? Boom, and then you go off the side of the cliff. So anyway, a few thoughts on the purport.
Okay. Right, text 10. In this way, King Paranjan killed many animals, including rabbits, boars, buffalo, bison, black deer, porcupines, and other game animals. After killing and killing, the king became very tired. Purport. A person in the mode of ignorance commits many sinful activities. In the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, Srila Rupa Goswami explains that a man becomes sinful out of ignorance only. The resultant effect of sinful life is suffering. Those who are not in knowledge, who commit violations of the standard laws, are subject to be punished under criminal laws. Similarly, the laws of nature are very stringent. If a child touches fire without knowing the effect, he must be burned, even though he is only a child. If a child violates the law of nature, there is no compassion. Only through ignorance does a person violate the laws of nature, and when he comes to knowledge, he does not commit any more sinful acts. Not easy for people to hear, actually. That's why this whole karma concept of karma is kind of accepted, and people like to throw this word about, but when you really get into it, it's not. Like if you talk about, like it's talking about a child, so, or if there's like a natural disaster or something happens, it's like, well, where was, and you see if you're on social media, people like, oh, thank God this one was saved, or I'll pray, I'm praying for them, because they passed away or something, and people get really nasty and say, where was your God? Where was God? God doesn't exist, like that. And if you try to, not that I suggest you do this, but if you try to add comments about karma and like just the laws of nature and this, it just wouldn't go down so well. Obviously there's time, place, circumstance for that sort of conversation, but just accepting that ignorance is no excuse, and when you get pulled over by the police, they don't say, oh, you didn't know, never mind, keep going. You're gonna get what's coming. So this whole thing about the laws of nature, and it doesn't discriminate, as it were, and it will act regardless. It's quite a interesting topic, deep, like touchy and that.
Yeah, powerful, the laws of nature, stringent, Prabhupada calls it, stringent laws of nature. And then, the whole point of getting burned by fire, somehow just hearing the laws of nature and a child getting burned by fire, I always think of the laws of nature as kind of karma, but in this situation, no, there are certain laws in nature. Fire burns regardless. Prabhupada said it has no compassion. Oh no, is a small child coming? No, the fire is like, whatever comes near me is going to get burned, or if there's something very cold, whatever comes near me, or moisture, water, the ocean, and whatever comes near me is going to get sucked in, So nature is relentless, and so we have to become intelligent and act accordingly. So, next paragraph, the king became tired after killing so many animals. When a man comes in contact with a saintly person, he becomes aware of the stringent laws of nature and thus becomes a religious person. Irreligious persons are like animals, but in this Krishna conscious movement, such persons can come to a sense of understanding things as they are and abandon the four principles of prohibited activities, namely illicit sex life, meat eating, gambling, and intoxication. This is the beginning of religious life. Those who are so-called religious and indulge in these four principles of prohibited activities are pseudo-religionists. Religious life and sinful activity cannot parallel one another. If one is serious in accepting a religious life or the path of salvation, he must adhere to the four basic rules and regulations. However sinful a man may be, if he receives knowledge from the proper spiritual master and repents his past activities in his sinful life and stops them, he immediately becomes eligible to return home, back to Godhead. Immediately, Prabhupada says. This is made possible just by following the rules and regulations given by the Shastra and following the bona fide spiritual master. That's very powerful. So basically, if first saintly persons or persons, what is meant to be given by, let's say, people who are doing outreach or preaching, is understanding of the stringent laws of material nature and that these four regulative principles are required. It sounds like Prabhupada is basically saying that's what happens. Then if you have some little intelligence, you think, oh, I need to avoid these things so that I can make progress. And Prabhupada says if you don't and you try to practice and do that, let's say intentionally, then not in the phase of trying to give it up, but post, then you're a pseudo-religionist. And Prabhupada says it's simply by following these regulative principles, where is it? Yeah. If you adhere to the 4 basic rules and regulations, however sinful, you can immediately go back to Godhead. That is very powerful. So simply by following the regulative principles.
Okay. Final paragraph. At present, the whole world is on the verge of retiring from a blind materialistic civilization, which may be likened to hunting animals in the forest. People should take advantage of this Krishna consciousness movement and leave their troublesome life of killing. It is said that the killers of animals should neither live nor die. If we live only to kill animals and enjoy women, life is not very prosperous. And as soon as a killer dies, he enters a cycle of birth and death in the lower species of life. That also is not desirable. The conclusion is that killers should retire from the killing business and take to this Krishna consciousness movement to make life perfect. A confused, frustrated man cannot get relief by committing suicide, because suicide will simply lead him to take birth in the lower species of life, or to remain a ghost, unable to attain a gross material body. Therefore, the perfect course is to retire altogether from sinful activities and take up Krishna consciousness. In this way, one can become completely perfect and go back home, back to Godhead. Listen, at present, the whole world is on the verge of retiring from a blind materialistic civilization. Yeah, it's interesting. It's like this urgency. The world is not going forward in a good place. Take to Krishna consciousness, but this was written in the 60s. Fast forward now, Lord,
70s.
it's like, with Prabhupada, I don't think he'd be surprised. I'm sure, but at the same time, yeah, it's interesting. Just his urgency comes through a lot in this. Just take to it.
Yeah. These killers should retire from killing business and take to Krishna conscious movement to make life perfect. He seems to hone in on 2 things here. Killing animals means meat eating and enjoying women. Enjoying the opposite sex. And life is not very prosperous. So, like that. Anything else? Okay, so we'll conclude there. Thank you very much for tuning in. Remember to like,
subscribe,
share,
comment.
Hare Hare.
Very well.